What's going on, everybody, and welcome to my very first Wheel of Time Diary video. This is both a brand new series for me and for, everybody else in general. Like I said, it is the first video, so this video is a little bit experimental in a sense as a result of that. So not 100% sure how I'm structuring these or how I'm going to go through these entirely. So I'm just kind of making it up as I go for this very first one. But this week, obviously, we are going to be talking about my journey, my first week of reading The Eye of the World, the first book in the Wheel of Time, and I gotta say, it's been a week. It was really, I've had a really great time with it. First of all, I spent about, I want to say approximately around 5.25 hours, somewhere between 5.5 hours, reading The Eye of the World this past week. I got through the first 8 chapters along with the prologue, so I read about a little over 100 pages in the book this week, which is a not insignificant chunk of the book. But if I want to get through the book in May as I plan, I'm going to have to crank that up to about 140 to maybe 150 pages a week for the remainder of the month, which I don't think will be too difficult because last week was kind of an outlier in some senses. In terms of my enjoyment levels, I will definitely say that my reading of The Wheel of Time this week has been an easy 5 stars. Like, honestly, very easy, especially after what I just read this morning as of Wednesday, May 3rd. You're seeing this on Thursday, May 4th. Each of my diaries I'll be recording on the Wednesday, the day before they come out. So, if you're curious about any of the scheduling type of stuff, how I'm basing these reads, they're going to be from the Thursday to the Wednesday, how much I read in that space of time. I started the book on Friday and read the prologue, and then on Saturday I read chapters 1 to 3. I skipped reading on Sunday because I was catching up on a different book, and then Monday I read chapter 4, and then Tuesday I read chapters 5 and 6, and therefore I read chapters 7 and 8 today on Wednesday. So that's how things have gone. But like I said, in terms of my enjoyment, very easy 5 stars, especially after chapters 7 and 8, which I thought were just fantastic. So first, now we are going to get into a little bit of the spoiler-free section of this video, because I do want to include a little bit of spoiler-free stuff in each of these diaries, so to speak, so that I can kind of give a broad overview of how I felt of what I read without giving any specifics, and then go into a spoiler-free section, or spoiler-filled section after that. So let's start off with the spoiler-free. So like I said, I read the prologue and the first 8 chapters. I thought the prologue of The Eye of the World was very good. I love the way that it trickled in little bits of lore and information that are I have no clue what is happening. I have no clue what's being discussed. I have no clue what any of this means, but I love it. It was that kind of vibe. I really enjoyed everything that was going on with that. I thought the introduction of the world and the actual characters and the story itself that happened over these first few chapters, I would say chapters 1 to 4, but especially chapters 1 to 3 were very good as well, getting to know some of the characters and, like I said, a little bit of the world building, at least of this very small location that we start off in, and just the kind of idea of everyday life for a couple of these characters. The interactions between characters I thought were quite good, and I got a little hints at some other stuff as well, and I thought that everything just worked perfectly. And then once bad things start to happen in the later couple chapters after that, I can say that I was thoroughly invested by that point. I've heard some people say that the beginning of this book is one of the less good parts of it, just because it starts off a bit slow or it takes a little bit to find its footing. And if that's the case, then I see myself really enjoying this book a lot, just because of how much I enjoyed this beginning. I really loved what I've read this far, but that's, I think, enough to say in the spoiler-free section. I don't really have much that I can really clarify even beyond that, so let's talk about the spoiler-filled. So if you've read this book, or if you have at least read the book up through the point that I have read, i.e. up until chapter 9, you should be good to watch on. And don't mind me while I go through this kind of section. I am going to be referencing a lot of my chapter-by-chapter summary notes that I've been posting on Discord as well, just because it'll give me an idea of some of the things that I talked about when I first read the chapters, and it will remind me of stuff that maybe I would otherwise forget, and will allow me to clarify some things as well. So I'm not going to go through every little thing and just reread the chapter summaries. I'll just kind of go through some of the things that I enjoyed. First off, like I said with the prologue, I just really enjoyed how it kind of set things up in a more vague, broad scale, and how it kind of has ramifications for how I think the story might go, or, whatever the case may be. In terms of the early chapters, like I said, I loved getting to know Rand as a character. I really enjoy Tam. Tam is one of my favorite characters so far. For some reason, I just really connect with Rand's father that way, which we'll talk a little bit more about in some sense. I loved the way that the book dripped in information such as stuff like the wisdom, or Nineveh's role as the wisdom. And in fact, let me look in the back of the book real quick and make sure that I'm actually pronouncing her name right, because I'm going to struggle with a lot of names throughout the series, I'm sure. Apparently, the back of the book says her name is pronounced Nynaeve, with an emphasis on Nye, which is not at all how I thought it was pronounced. Like I said, I thought it was Nineveh or something like that. But if it's Nynaeve, I guess I'm going to say Nynaeve. Whatever. Her role in the village of the story, so to speak, is one that I'm very interested in, and especially even more beyond her role, but also kind of a little hint of something that I got in, I believe it was chapter 3, with Rand's first interaction on the page, at least his first interaction on page with Egwene. I think the gender dynamic thing is going to be something that I'm very interested to see how that works in this world, because apparently, as far as I know, the things that I've seen of people discussing this series is that the gender dynamics and how particularly women treat men, especially, is something that some people take issue with, that some people think is overboard, that some people find annoying. A lot of people dislike a lot of the female characters throughout the series for one reason or another. So I'm very interested to see how that is going to go for me, because there's just a couple hints of some of the things that Egwene said to Rand specifically that I was that took me off guard in a way that was I don't know if I like that, it just kind of felt off to me. So I'm interested to see how the gender dynamics work as a general theme of the series, or, however it is you want to describe it. I will say I was surprised by how many characters were already introduced into the story by the time we got to chapter 3 or 4, including the new ones such as, say, the Peddler, who gave us a lot of interesting lore and driblets of that, regarding the Aes Sedai and, the false dragon, so to speak. Just this information that's just okay, well, there's some stuff going on in the broader world, or at least rumors of stuff going on in the broader world that's really interesting. Somehow something associated with that is definitely going to be coming into play in this village soon, and that's what I thought at the time of reading it, for sure. The Gleeman is all as well, the next chapter, and I'm just going to say this straight out. Let me go ahead and find the actor real quick. I'm not a person to do fan castings or anything like that in terms of, how I imagine characters to look. A lot of times characters that I imagine in my head are either people that I know in real life, they're me, or like I said, people I know in real life, or they just don't have actual faces to them. But for whatever reason, the Gleeman in the story, Tom, I will say I picture Sam Elliott as Tom. I have no clue why, but that immediately popped into my head and has not left me. So my headcanon for Tom's character is Sam Elliott. If you know who that is, I will probably try to include a picture here in editing if I can, because that would be an interesting way to do it. Just to give you an idea, I don't know if that's anybody else's thought as well. If that happened to be the case, that would be really fun and interesting, but I doubt that that's the case. Either way, I thought that the Gleeman was a very great chapter as well, and even the things that come along with the story with the Gleeman are very interesting. I just love the way that everything is kind of happening in Emmons Field in the Two Rivers area for this Beltane Festival, or Beltane Festival, however it's pronounced. I'm very interested in how that's going to go, but something told me as I was reading it that that wasn't going to happen. And my suspicions were very quickly confirmed when in chapters 5 and 6, poop starts to hit the fan, let's say, when a bunch of Trollocs start to, invade and attack Rand and his father at their house. And I loved this sequence. Chapters 5 and 6 were super breathtaking and exhilarating and really stressful to read. They were really great. And it was at this point that I was starting to get a lot of theories, because, earlier in the book, I think it might have even been in the first chapter itself. Rand sees a dark, shadowy horseman-like figure that's really suspicious and strange, and that just makes him scared. This, I wasn't sure what to think of it before, but there was somebody in Discord who actually had me, take a guess at what the writer was. I mean, he didn't make me do it, but he asked me if I had any theories, and even if they were early on. And I said to him at the time, I was like, I think he's got to be like some sort of minion of the Dark One or something like that. But then after chapter 6, the Westwood, when Rand is dragging Tam's body through the woods trying to get him to the village, might I also add that Tam's mutterings and whatnot, that Tam might not actually be Rand's biological father, is really strange detail to include. I'm not sure how or why that's going to fit in the story, but I feel like that's going to be important in some way, shape, or form, especially since Rand is rather fixated on it for the several chapters following it. He keeps thinking about it and bringing it up in his mind. But either way, at the end of chapter 6, when the mysterious horseman shadowy thing is riding through the woods with the Trollocs, and they like look right at him, but they don't notice him, and they just kind of ride on. Super tense scene, I will say. But it was at that point that I wondered if this mysterious horseman thing was the Fade that the Trolloc that Rand killed in his house the chapter before, or maybe it was earlier in that same chapter. I don't remember for sure. Either way, it was at that point that I began wondering if this mysterious figure was a Fade, and much to my surprise, a couple chapters later, that was confirmed. So I'm very, I don't know, I guess I'm kind of exhilarated and excited and happy about the fact that a couple of my theories have been correct. I didn't want Tam to die, and at least at the end of chapter 8, it seems like he's not going to die. But kind of as I was saying before, with chapters 5 and 6 being super tense and exhilarating scenes, I was, pretty much invested in the story by that point. I mean, I was invested before because I was enjoying what it was setting up, but by the time chapters 5 and 6 happened, I was enjoying that. But chapters 7 and 8, when Rand gets Tam's body to the village and they get him to the inn, and a lot more little bits of lore and whatnot are dropped about Moraine having showed up for the festival seemingly as just kind of an outsider. Moraine turning out to be an Aes Sedai as one of the ones who came out of, is it Torvalon or Tarvalon? I can't remember. That, left that area, which was mentioned earlier in chapter 3. So I was kind of right about some of that stuff leaking into the village. That was really interesting. And especially like one of my favorite elements, I would say, as well, is kind of like the cognitive dissonance that kind of exists between the people of this village, and it seems like the people of the world as a whole, potentially. The way that these people think of the Aes Sedai as a group of people, as these people who wield a power, and the stories that Rand, knows of the Aes Sedai, specifically mentions in his thoughts how he doesn't even know if he knows of any stories with an Aes Sedai in it where the Aes Sedai is not the villain, but he doesn't have any other chance of saving Tam without the Aes Sedai. So he has to go and ask her about it to help. And the entire scene in chapter 8 when, just the conversations between Rand and, I forget his name, but the person who aids or accompanies the Aes Sedai in the book so far. I forget his name already for whatever reason, but the conversations that they're having, the little input that Moraine has as well while Moraine's healing Tam. And again, I will say, I'm very grateful that Tam does not appear to just be dying, even though Rand still has to leave. I'm glad that Tam doesn't die here because I really like Tam and I did not want him to die so early. I really enjoyed everything that was being included in the story up to this point. Just about everything that was discussed and revealed and confirmed, like my theory about the mysterious rider being the Fade, and the fact that the Trollocs attacking the Two Rivers area, it was likely in some way related to some sort of prophecy or something that Rand has some sort of part in, and it seems that might be the case with Rand, Mat, and Perrin apparently having been born in a similar space of time as each other, and so the Dark One apparently sent minions to try to kill them, I guess, because he's scared of them. So kind of a interesting little tidbit that is. But yeah, I don't know what else I have that is specifically spoilery that I can or will remember to get into in this video, and I'm very sorry at the end of this one if this is a little bit rough. Like I said, this is my first go around with this. Theoretically, as I go on with reading the series and go on with doing these kinds of videos, that I'll get a little bit better at doing spoiler talk type of stuff, because I don't really do that on my channel up to this point. But that's pretty much what I'm going to cap it off as, and just conclude by saying once again that I really loved what I read. Everything that has happened in the story up to this point has me super interested and exhilarated. Like I said, I'm 100 pages in out of this hardcover, having about 660 pages or so. Though I will need to speed it up a little bit for subsequent weeks, but if anywhere near as much happens in the rest of this book as has happened so far in these first 8 chapters, which, to be clear, not a whole lot has happened. It's just, you know, been enjoyable to read. It's just being in the world with these characters and whatnot has been enjoyable. I think I'm going to enjoy this book. If what people have told me about how the rest of it goes, besides the climax being a little bit mixed among people, it seems, I think I'm going to enjoy this book based off of how much I've enjoyed these first 8 chapters, particularly chapters 7 and 8. It's just been super great. I'm very excited to see what goes down with, you know, essentially Rand and Matt and Perrin presumably preparing to leave this little village, this, I forget what it's called, Emmonsfield, preparing to leave Emmonsfield behind so that the Trollocs won't attack the village again, you know, just kind of as a general safety type of precaution thing. I'm really excited to see where that goes and how the story develops from there, especially given that in chapter 8, while, what's her name, Moraine, is healing Tam, the discussions that are happening in that scene involve potentially Rand having to go to Torvallon, sorry, again, I'm forgetting which one of those it is, to see what Rand or Matt or Perrin potentially have, whether it be a power or some other, you know, sort of thing that the Dark One is afraid of that caused this whole thing to happen in the first place. Like, I'm very excited to see what this journey is going to be like. I anticipate that I'll enjoy it quite a bit, and I hope that I'll enjoy it quite a bit. So, with that being said, that is going to be the end of this diary for now. I'm very excited to continue. Thank you guys for watching if you did. Again, I'm very sorry if this was a little bit rough. It's undoubtedly going to be very rough. Given that it is my first time doing it, I will try to improve over time, but I hope anybody who watched this video and enjoyed it, or enjoys hearing my thoughts and wants to hear me discuss things a little bit more as well over time, continues to watch future diaries as well. So again, thank you guys for watching. I'll be back in the next video.